everybody to the June. Wait a minute. I just got the little thing. Yes, you may continue to record me. Welcome to the June 2021 Central Florida Astronomical Society meeting presented via Zoom because of the state of the world. We have an exciting meeting for you. Let me get the right window with focus here. Tonight, we're going to have a mini program summer spectacular, all mini programs. So we're going to start off with Derek Demeter, uh, showcasing member astrophotos and sketches like we do every month. I'm going to expand my minute on the moon to a little more general observing the moon mini program, probably about 10 minutes or so. Sharife is going to talk about spaceport news, things going on with SpaceX. We're going to have Byrne from WMFE talking about the Bring Mars to Earth event. Our own archaeoastronomer, Taran Hill, is going to do a book review for us. John Pinto, get your calculators ready. Summer solstice, that's this month, the longest day of the year. You know why I'm excited about the longest day of the year and the shortest night of the month of the year? Because once we get past that, the nights start getting longer and we can start doing more astronomy. Elaine Fisher is going to talk about eclipse travel. There is an eclipse tomorrow, but also people are starting to make plans for the 2024 eclipse. I don't actually know if she's going to talk about that, but hopefully she'll talk about eclipse planning in general. And then Eric Hoin is going to spend 60 seconds on the sun. Just a reminder, our new website is live. If you haven't checked it out yet, go there. That's a nice new website we're very proud of. Also, official member CFAS communication is through Groups.io. We've been getting a lot of requests to join Groups.io from non-members. It occurred to me, well, it occurred to all of us on the board the other night that I've been promoting Groups.io as the official communications. And so we have non-members who are actually watching this on YouTube and are trying to get in. So Groups.io is a perk for membership into CFAS. If you're not a member, we do have an open group on Facebook, and we do post events and things like that on Facebook. And so you can always keep track of us there. Sharife is always looking for astrophotos to use in our social media efforts. So if you've got any new astrophotos, excuse me, not only do we want to show them off at our meetings, but Sharife would like to use them for publicity purposes, and that'd be great if you could send them to her. Outreach. If you do any type of outreach, official or unofficial, Lynn Ward would like to know. We do keep track of that sort of thing. The NASA Night Sky Network logs our hours for the club, and we actually do have a reputation for being one of the most active clubs, at least during non-pandemic times, for outreach events. So we're a little starved right now. So if you do anything with neighbors or with friends, or somebody invites you to their church, or you just do it at a birthday party, let us know what you're up to so that we can keep a record of that. There is actually an Astronomical League certificate program for doing outreach. And if you log your hours, you could be eligible for a certificate for recognition as well. Concerning outreach, we only had one event this month. My original slide said coming this month, and then I realized that was yesterday. Yesterday we had God's Girls, the Galaxy, and I remember going outside last night and going, wow, it's clear. And so Lynn and Mauricio, Eric, and Tina had a good time, and the skies were clear enough for them to do some stuff. So that was our one outreach event. Outreach has been a little down, of course, because of, well, this is kind of how things are right now. So I'm very happy to say this is not going to last forever. Da, 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 drum roll. We are tentatively planning to resume in-person meetings at the college in September. This is the college's current plan is to reopen for on-site things in September. So we're gonna go with what the college is doing and get together. This is tentative. Anything could happen. Asteroid strike, riots, civil wars, a new strain of the virus that causes apes to start talking, and you know how that ends. So anything could happen between now and then. But we're hoping that in September we can start getting together in person. We're also planning to have a little kickoff event. The weather around September should start getting better. The nights are getting longer, and so we're going to have kind of an impromptu CFAS only star party. It's not going to be a big star party. Just everybody BYOT, bring your own telescope, or if you don't have a telescope, come. I'm sure lots of people will be happy to share, and we'll set up somewhere at the planetarium or someplace nearby where we can all get together and do a little astronomy and also do some socializing. We will have more details on that by the next meeting or so. It looks like September 11th is going to be the date for that. But also anything could happen, but that seems to be the best date in September. That's actually right after our September meeting, and that'd be really great. Now, also in regards to the pandemic and doing Zoom, it's really great that so many of our members have been, supporting the club through Zoom. There's sort of a perception that, it's sort of dying off. Nobody's doing anything, but CFAS has actually been growing. We recently did a big purge of our membership list. We were kind of pushovers about whether you renew or not, and we had a lot of people on our membership roll who hadn't renewed in a long time, and so we purged nearly 50 people from the list, which means our current roster is current active paid members, people who are actually interested in being a part of CFAS. And we're at 131 paid active members right now, which is actually more than we had at the beginning of the pandemic. If you take the purge into account from just the beginning of the year, it's like a 20%, 22, something like that, percent increase in membership since January. And we're not going to do the whole every month we're going to tell you how many members we have and go knocking on doors and all that sort of thing. But it is kind of nice to know that CFAS has grown over the pandemic. Of course, I think really a lot of that's due to the fact that interest in astronomy has grown over the pandemic. All of the people in the vendor community are talking about how great business is right now. So there are certain segments, that are really hurting, of course. But we got a lot of people who've got time on their hands. They've gotten into astronomy, gotten interested into it, and for whatever reasons, I won't get into it, have money to spend on astronomy, and they're buying telescopes and things, and wanting to get into the astronomy club. So we're very excited about that. CFAS is doing quite well, and we should be returning to on-site meetings very soon. And I imagine as the fall weather comes and people become more comfortable getting together with other people, our outreach is also going to return to the more vibrant uh, you know outreach programs that we normally have throughout the last several years. And of course, we'll also do some CFAS only events, some observing events, things for people to bring their telescopes to get help, setting them up and using them, and all those sorts of things that people join astronomy groups to do. And with that, that is the end of my announcements. It's time to get this show on the road. And first up is Derek. So, Derek, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and let you take over.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, I was actually replying to a question. We did have a question in regards to will Zoom meeting attendance still be an option? And I'm just finishing up that, saying that we will discuss that. I will look into, right now our internet is not very reliable in the planetarium, but this could be something that we could look into. I know the college did say today in an email that they are working on upgrading infrastructure for doing more hybrid stuff. So I will bring that up to my superiors and say, hey, we would like to start doing more live streams for people who want to continue that. Maybe that could be an option. So I just wanted to bring that up there for those
Sure.
that were curious about that.
And remember too, even before the pandemic, we were recording the meetings and putting them on YouTube. So we'll definitely go back to that. So if you missed the meeting, you can at least watch the meeting. And and on interactive Zoom, get into the meeting. That's something we can look at as well.
All right, fantastic. So, like I normally do with our astrophotography showcase, if you submitted a astro photo, I will go ahead and ask you to unmute, and if you'd like to discuss a little bit about your photos, that would be a great opportunity to do that. So let's get to it. Actually, you know what I'm going to do, just to make sure, I forgot I plugged in my microphone, so it's probably sounds a little strange. All right, hopefully that's a little bit better for you all. Okay, so let's get started here. So I am going to bring up the PowerPoint, and I'm going to go ahead and bring up the participant thing so I can go ahead and look that up there. Okay, so the first shot, first image that we have here is actually, first couple are actually my images. This is one of my more recent photographs over at the Bull Creek Wildlife Management Area. A lot of CFAS members ask about this site. This is the closest true dark sky site to a lot of people here in Central Florida. It's just southeast of St. Cloud. And the skies are very, very nice here. This is actually part of the Florida Trail. I decided to hike the Florida Trail at night. This was a little bit earlier in May, when we still had a nice fog built up in the early morning. So it created a really nice, very nice landscape, if you will, for imaging the night sky. So that's a nice, beautiful Milky Way. We are looking into hosting some Milky Way photography programs. However, the Milky Way does rise fairly late still. So we are probably going to plan that later in the late summer, when the Milky Way isn't, rising so late in the evening. So we'll definitely plan something like that out there at Bull Creek. This was taken with a 24 millimeter Rokinon lens and a Canon 6DA cooled camera from HuTech. I also used an Astro track for the sky and untracked image for the ground, and then blended them together to create this final image. Both exposures were 1 minute at ISO 1600. So, all right, next image was a image I took of the ISS transit. Here we have the ISS right here flying across the moon. This is illuminated transit. Unfortunately, the seeing was 2 out of 5. It was actually really, really bad that day, but I really wanted to get it because of the phase of the moon that it was in. Because this particular phase of the moon, you can see the yellow circles represent the lunar X and the lunar V optical and optical illusions, if you will, created by the way the light is hitting off several craters on the moon. And this happens only usually at just as you arrive very close to the first quarter moon, just maybe a day or two, or I believe it's like day or so before that. And I wanted to get this event. It wasn't the best sky conditions. I wasn't really happy with the sky conditions, but I wanted to get it anyways because it was a great way to explain this phenomenon as well. So 3 cool astronomical objects in one. This was with the Celestron Edge HD CPC 1100 with a Canon 5D Mark IV attached to it. And this is 1/6000th of a second. This was also shot during the day. So it was a very short exposure. And that's why it's a little grainy, because it was shot during the day at very low shutter speed to capture the ISS. So I had to enhance that a little bit there. So anyway, so that's that. And next image we have, I believe, is from Barbara Harris. So I think Barbara Harris is here. So I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk, Barbara, if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself and discuss this image here.
Hi, everyone. As many of you know, every year I do a little project where I take a picture of Barnard's star. Barnard's star is the 4th closest star to us, and it is also the fastest moving star to us. And it moves about 10 arc seconds a year, about 10.3 arc seconds a year. And this movement can be demonstrated every year. So this is my 8th year in a row taking an image of Barnard's star and stacking the images to show the movement from 2014 to 2021. And this is image is taken with my Proline camera on my Meade 16-inch. It's only a 15-second exposure because it's a pretty bright star at about 9.6 magnitude. And it's taken with a V filter because Barnard star is also a variable star that I monitor on a regular basis. So not only do I take the image to demonstrate its proper motion, but I also take regular images of it for photometry. So this is my 8th year in a row taking this particular image with the same telescope, same camera, same filter.
All right, fantastic. Yeah, it's always such a treat to see the progress of the of Barnard Star that you take, Barbara. So thank you for sharing that image. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and move on to our next image. I believe this is from John Starr, and I think I saw John Starr on here. Yes, he is. So I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk, John, and if you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about your image, that would be great.
Sure, thank you. So this is a shot, part of the North America Nebula, and specifically I was trying to get the Cygnus wall there in the lower left corner, and then the Pelican Nebula off to the right was eaten alive by mosquitoes trying to take this shot between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. over 6 nights at the end of May. So a very bright moon, not sort of the best conditions for seeing. Or also I was in my backyard in Winter Park, so it's a Bortle 8 or 9. So it was tough, but I think it came out pretty well. It's amazing what you can do with narrowband. Really, really fun area of space, I think, to shoot, particularly the Cygnus region. The star Deneb is unfortunately off frame over here to the top right. It's just off frame, but very active star forming region. And this Cygnus wall, which I'm really pleased about, is just to give you a sense of scale, is thought to be 20 light years across, which is just phenomenal. So again, a fun image, and wouldn't really be possible without sort of narrowband images. I shot this with my 80 millimeter Esprit refractor, Series EQG vectorial mount, ZWO 1600 mono, and ZWO narrowband filters.
Great, fantastic. Yeah, no, what's really interesting is when you do astrophotography, you do have to battle bugs. And I think when we hopefully get back together during the September meeting, maybe I will do a mini program on how I battle the bugs wearing this full-on crazy bug suit, and how you can create your own bug suit for astrophotography in the dark. So that might be one of our mini programs for the for the first month of us getting back together.
All right, see Derek in a bug suit.
Yeah,
definitely.
All right, so thank you, John. I really appreciate that. Excellent. Okay, our next image is from, I believe, Frank Kane. Frank.
Yeah, this is this little cloud of hydrogen goes by the catchy name of SH2-9, and it's probably better known as the red part of the Rho Ophiuchi Nebula. So I had these grand plans of doing this big mosaic of that entire region of the sky because it's really pretty, but Florida's weather had other plans for me. Plus, this is really low in the sky, so there's like really bad light pollution gradients going on around here. But managed to get this. Really challenging conditions, though. Not only is it low in the sky, it was also surrounding a full moon. So while there is RGB data in here, it's mostly hydrogen alpha that's been enhanced to make those clouds really pop. About 12 hours total exposure time over a few nights, and the equipment was an Attic 383L Plus camera on a Skywatcher 190 MN telescope on a Paramount Mighty mount.
All right, Frank, and I think the next image is yours as well.
Yes, I'm happier with this one, the Trifid Nebula, or M20. Always wanted to get this one. It was always behind trees in my previous house, but now I can finally image it. And it takes a fair amount of exposure time. It's also fairly low in the sky, and it's got that blue reflection nebula going on, which you kind of need dark skies to capture. But I'm happy with this one. If you get this one right, it kind of looks like a flower, and I think I kind of got there with it. So M20, total of about 6 hours on this one. Same gear as before. And I'll also give a shout out to the Thermacell device for keeping the mosquitoes away.
Yes, those thermocells are quite amazing. They work really well with yellow biting flies too. If you don't mind
chemical warfare, it's a good option.
Yes, I agree. All right, excellent. Thank you, Frank. Always great to see your images. All right, our next image is one of my images. This was taken actually back in March. I just haven't had a chance to really process my deep space images. This is the Seagull Nebula, located in Auriga-ish Gemini area of the sky. It's kind of in between that area. And this right here was taken with a 190 millimeter Mac Newtonian. This was about 3 hours of data. And this is with the Canon 6DA cooled camera as well. So again, this is a true RGB, if you will. This is not narrowband, so you get that really nice pinkish color for the hydrogen alpha. And obviously there's a lot of reflectant nebula as well from the nearby young star clusters there. So a nice emission nebula with some reflecting nebula and even some dark nebulae in there as well that you see. So it's a nice mix of all different kinds of nebulae in the sky. All right, our next image is actually from Fritz Lau. Fritz isn't able to join us tonight, but he did submit this. This is the Eyes, which is a nice galaxy group there. And this was taken with his RC-10 as well as his Losmandy G11 and the Attic 383L camera. Unfortunately, I didn't get much information as far as his acquisition time, but this is a really nice image that Fritz created from his backyard in and around near Lake Nona. So again, pretty light polluted area right by the airport, and he is imaging far away distant galaxies. So again, if you feel like, oh, I'm in the middle of a light polluted environment, it's amazing how some of these cameras with their sensitivity can do some great work. So don't feel scared to get out there and do some cool imaging. All right, and our last image for tonight belongs to Richard Wright. So Richard, we'll leave it with you.
This is not a comet number 94 or Messier 94. This was taken with an Esprit 150 on an MX Plus and a ZWO 6200 camera, and we're using chroma filters for it. This telescope this is about 7 hours of exposure time, and the scope is actually located in Northern California near Lake San Antonio. This is a remote site that's a collaboration between me and two of my friends. And so we log in. We've got a Prima Luce Eagle, and we log in remotely to run the scope. We take turns running it on, from night to night. But about 7 hours of exposure time, mostly RGB. I did get about an hour of luminance. The cool thing about this galaxy is the ring of stars around it. There's actually another tidal stream of stars, and that's one of the two things I was a little disappointed. I didn't pick up the second stream of stars. I was trying to keep the exposure short to not blow out the center of the galaxy, and I still got a little bit of saturation in the middle there. But overall, I was pretty happy with it. The JPEG compression kind of kills the ring of stars around it, but there's some little clumps in there that look like star forming regions. So it's almost like a galaxy inside of a galaxy. It's pretty neat little object. I'm really surprised I've never shot this target before, but that's it.
All right. Thank you, Richard. All right. Well, that about does it for our astrophotography showcase for this month. Of course, don't feel shy. Please submit your images to me, to our meetings, and we are excited to feature any of those images during our showcase. So with that, I bring it back to Richard.
All right, thanks. I'm gonna talk a little bit about the moon. Deep sky stuff is great, but I really enjoy observing the moon, which is why I talk about the moon every month. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the moon. This is a little bit of a refresh of a talk that I gave a while back. Why the moon? We do a lot of deep sky stuff, but the moon is also a really great target for looking at with your telescope or binoculars or whatnot. It is immune to light pollution, so you do not have to travel to a dark sky site. You do not need a remote observatory. You can do this in your backyard with all your lights on, or from the parking lot at Starbucks, which I'll be going back to doing every month in the near future. It's available every month. You don't have to wait until the spring or the summer or get up at 4 in the morning. During certain months, the moon is available all month long. It's even available during the day. If you know when to look. Weather is not as critical. You don't need super awesome transparency to look at the moon. In fact, I've set up a telescope with hazy clouds, and the moon is a very bright target. And people who want to look at something at an outreach event, they're perfectly fine with clouds going in front of the moon while they're watching. It's actually kind of cool to watch because it just looks like smoke going in front of it. The moon is not as static as people say. It's constantly changing. If not necessarily the moon's surface, but because the sun is moving across the moon very rapidly, over the course of even hours, we can see shadows changing on the moon. And because of libration or wobbling of the moon, which I'll talk about in a minute, the shadows actually change from month to month, and you can see different features, and there's even some fun things to look for. You can also observe the moon naked eye and make careful notes about it. We've been watching the moon since ancient times, and we know quite a bit about how the moon moves through the sky, and that's great. Any optical aid at all will bring out a wealth of detail. So that quote trash scope for you got for Christmas, or where the serious guys are poo-pooing your telescope. Get it out and look at the moon. Almost anything brings the moon closer, and you can see amazing things on the moon with almost any optical aid at all. Even little toy opera glass binoculars will bring the moon in closer, and you can see all sorts of things that are there. You want to do astrophotography? There is no easier target than the moon. You literally can hold your cell phone up to an eyepiece and take photos of the moon like that. It does take a little bit of eye-hand coordination to hold this phone still, or you can get a little bracket to hold it. Here's a couple of kids who figured it out in the parking lot, and we're taking pictures. You just stick a DSLR on the back of a telescope, and it's like having a super telephoto lens to take photos of the moon. With my best Jack Horkheimer impersonation, vital stats of the moon, it's really big. It's 2,160 miles across, 6,790 miles in circumference. That means all the way around the equator. It weighs 81 quintillion tons, which is a whole lot. It is 15 million square miles of lunar surface, which is about 1/14 of the surface of the Earth. It is 273 degrees in the day and 280 degrees below zero at night. So during the day, you can bake cookies on the surface of the moon, and at night, you could make margaritas. It's actually moving very fast at 2,287 miles an hour. In fact, if you look at the moon through an optic on a tripod, you can see it moving across your field of view, just like that, moving right on across. Or if your telescope, if you turn off tracking, it'll move out of your field of view very fast. It's really far away, 250,000 miles at its greatest, to around 221,000 miles. Around the 252, of course, it's really far away, and when it gets really close at 221, you can see it's not a very big difference. They like to call that a super moon if that happens during full moon. One of the most amazing things about the lunar surface is it only reflects about 7% of the sunlight. Of course, it varies across the moon. There are some areas that are very bright and reflective, but on average, the moon is like a charcoal briquette. It's actually very dark. So why does it look so bright in our sky? Well, because there's a lot of sun shining on it, and that really lights it up for us. I got a little slide ahead of me here. This is lunar libration. So as the moon goes around the Earth, because its orbit is elliptical, it looks like it tilts sort of from one side to the next. There is some physical tilting that it does, but the physical tilting is it's actually less than a degree. So the moon wobbling in space is actually very, very, very small. The majority of what you see here is an optical illusion. In fact, they call it optical libration. And that's just because of the fact that the orbit is tilted, and of course the orbit is not perfectly round, and so it goes around the Earth. We kind of see a little bit on each side. We can actually see 59% of the lunar surface due to this. And if you look over here, there's Maria, there's these little areas here that are in view and then they disappear, and there's all sorts of features that just pop into view during certain times of the year, certain times of the month, or I should say of the lunar orbit. It's not necessarily monthly. Some lunar geography. The most obvious are the lunar Maria, or as someone in my family called them, the Marias. The lunar Maria, naked eye. Yes, this is a blurry version on purpose because, from Earth, naked eye, you can still make out these dark patches. And if you want to know what they're called, these are the Harry Potter versions, or the Latin names for the lunar Maria. Or if you need the English ones, we've got the Sea of Showers, the Sea of Tranquility. And I'll leave this as an exercise for the viewer, so to speak, to learn more about these. But you can actually point out most of these naked eye. Some large craters are also visible naked eye, for example, Plato and Grimaldi. Tycho is visible naked eye if you've got really sharp vision. And during first quarter moon, anyway, you can see a lot of these craters naked eye. Got a little tripped up there. The variations in brightness are due to iron, aluminum, and titanium, which are all over the place on the moon. Some people like to take color pictures and push the saturation really hard to make those colors stand out more vividly. But when you're looking at the telescope, when you're looking at the moon through a telescope, you can see some of these variations. They're a little more subtle than they show up in photographs, though. Also, lunar rays are amazing. There's a lot of detail in these ray systems. These are basically when a meteor hits the Earth and it blows stuff all over the place, you get a lot of titanium and aluminum that gets spread out everywhere, and they're very bright, certainly much higher than the 7% that we were talking about earlier. And they create these ray systems. So Tycho has probably the largest ray system that we can see on Earth. Kepler and Copernicus also have got very intricate little spidery webs things, and these pop out during full moon. You can't see them very well. We usually look at the moon. We like to look at the moon during first quarter, or when the light is hitting it from the surface from an angle, so we can see more of the mountains and we can see more of the surface details. But during full moon, when the sun is shining right down, these ray systems really pop out, and they're virtually invisible later on in the month. So something really cool. All sorts of things on the moon to study. The lunar highlands, which are all these white areas. There's also areas on the moon that have been volcanically active, not in recent time. Let's see. I'm not even going to try to pronounce anthracite, but there's all kinds of minerals up there that make that distinctive coloring. And of course, the highlands are much older than the Maria or the lunar seas. The lunar seas are basaltic lavas that formed either from a volcano that erupted and filled in these vast basins, or when the impact that created the basins, the impact was so large that it penetrated down enough to where it released magma to come up to the surface. It's still somewhat debated as to which of those two mechanisms formed the lunar Maria. There's also mountains all over the moon that you can study, and these are really cool because every month the shadows are just slightly different. Every night they look different visually, and you'll see more and different details that really that really stand out. Impact craters are fun to watch over the course of several evenings. When the sun is straight down on the impact crater, such as this full moon image of Kepler, you can, I'm just going to say crater. Never mind. I'm not going to embarrass myself. But when the moon is right, when the sun is shining right down on this crater, you can't see a lot of the detail. But when the sun is more at an angle, you start to see the shadows and things start to pop out. And look at all these little craters around the edge here. These just sort of pop right on out when the sun is shining more from an edge. We've also got craters with lava flooded floors. These are usually near or in the lunar maria. These probably were there before the maria formed, and then when the lava that formed the maria came along, somehow it seeped into these craters and filled them as well. Lunar lava, by the way, has about the same viscosity as motor oil. I read that recently and it just stuck in my head. And it's one of those cool things. If I'm ever on Jeopardy, I might win some money with that. A lot of the larger craters have central peaks, which are really cool. These are formed when the impactor causes a rebound effect. And so literally it just crushes in and it pops back up. It's sort of like when you drop something in water and you get that little splash up, except the splash up sort of freezes in time, and you see that. And these central peaks are really amazing. A lot of detail that you can see. It's really fun to watch the ones, especially along the limb where the sun is popping out, and you can see like one here, the very tip of that central peak is peeking out there, and that is even a shadow from that central peak being cast on that far wall of that crater right there. This is actually one of my favorite lunar pictures that I ever got. Plato, this is called the Plato hook, which is an interesting shadow pattern. You don't get the Plato hook every month. It depends on the lunar libration. So it depends on how the sun is hitting the moon when that happens. Here's the lunar X, which Derek actually got a nice photo of the lunar X. The lunar X does not occur every month, and it only lasts for a few hours. So you have to be on the ball if you want to catch the lunar X. And there are all sorts of fun things that you can find in the shadows. This is my little favorite shadow monster. This doesn't have a name. I'm probably not the first person to discover this guy, but you got a couple little mountains here that are sticking way up above the lunar surface. And so the sun hits that. And then this guy right here is sort of the little frowny face there, but I like that. Here's another photo that I got down in the Keys once, where two little mountain peaks. This was we saw this visually, and I was just totally freaked out, and I immediately pulled off the eyepieces and stuck a camera on to take a picture of these two mountain peaks. Also, sort of an unsolicited astrophotography tip. I had to take one picture to get this earth shine and another photo to get this illuminated area. There was too much difference between the brightness and the darkness here to take one exposure and get both of them. So I took a longer exposure for the earth shine, this is actually illuminated by the earth. So the earth, if you're on the moon, the earth looks bright too, because the sun's shining on the earth, and that bright earth lights up the moon, and you can see that. We call it earth shine. And then of course, this is the limb of the moon being lit by the sun. That was, it was just really cool. And you don't see this every month. Again, this is just one of those kind of rare occurrences that you gotta be there to see. There are other cool things to look at. Rills, sinuous rills, arcuate rills, which are smooth at the edges of the maria, and in this case, in a crater. This is the crater Gacel right here, which the crater actually has a system of rills inside. We have straight rills like the Valles Alpus here. This is caused by the crust sort of pulling apart as things settled on the moon. Dorsum or wrinkle ridges. That's these little wrinkles here, and you can't see these when the sun is shining straight down. You got to catch these right during, very soon after lunar sunrise, when the sun is hitting them at a very grazing angle. And that's where the lava was cooling and getting denser, and then of course contracting as it cools, and it made these little wrinkle ridges. And you've probably seen things like this when you're cooking and something cools and it creates these little wrinkles in it. There are volcanoes on the moon. We do not have, there are some accounts of active volcanism in the last few hundred years. They are, somewhat contested, but I actually think a couple of them are probably valid. So chances are you might could get lucky looking at the moon and see some active volcanism going on. We have domes and cones both. Here's a shot showing some lunar domes. They look like mosquito bites, and again, these are also these are only like dozens of meters above the lunar surface. They're not very high at all. They're just very, very tiny, and they got little holes in the middle, just like a mosquito bite. And these are volcanic domes. Uh, they're very old, of course. They're not doing this now, but there's actually an active observing program in Alpo, the uh, I have a link at the end to the Alpo website. But some of these are still being cataloged, looking for these as the sun comes up, because they, you don't really see them in lunar orbiter photographs. And even though we've got a laser flying over the moon that's doing altimetry data, it just shows as a high spot, but it doesn't necessarily show as an actual lunar dome there. We still have to detect those visually. And of course, there's an active opportunity to do that, which brings us to science opportunities. If you want to do real science, I consider a lot of things that we do real science, but some people are very persnickety. If you want to do quantitative science, there are opportunities to do occultation observing on Earth. Rush out to a certain location and watch the moon go in front of a star and time it. And we can use that to do asteroid. We can do all sorts of interesting science with that. We can refine the information about the lunar orbit. Sometimes there are lots of things we could do with that. This requires, of course, you have a portable telescope, so it's ideal for amateurs. Observatories can't do this, but you can take your telescope and drive to Titusville if you want and set it up and do some occultation timings. And and Alpo will be happy to take those timings from you. There are also transient lunar phenomena. There are two types of those, really. And there's meteor impacts. We had a meteor impact during the lunar eclipse in January 2 years ago. Several people caught that meteor impact because they were taking pictures of the eclipsed moon. I was taking a photo every minute. On the minute, I was taking another photo, and I missed it. But I think Derek actually got one with the meteor impact, and there's just this little bright area on the moon where the meteor popped there and lit it up. There's also recurring events, certain areas of the moon where there are things going on. They're not necessarily volcanic venting. Some of them could be because of the types of materials and the angle of the sunlight. Sun gets bounced around and things are going on. And so there's active programs that are studying that to try to understand the lunar topography and things that are going on there. Also, the timing of first appearance of features. How early can I see this feature when the sun is coming up? And there's also lots of small scale features, like I was talking about the volcanic domes, that can only be seen at very low grazing altitude, very low grazing sun angles, and are very difficult to detect with orbiting spacecraft, but can actually be more easily detected from Earth, which is kind of cool. I had a member once say something. He was talking about science in CFAS and people doing science, and he was big into variable stars, and I think that's great. We've got members who are doing variable. We got numerous members doing variable star members, and I think that's awesome. And I said, yeah, I'm more interested in the moon. It's just my interest. He says, yeah, there's nothing interesting on the moon. I'm like, oh my, there's all kinds of science you can do on the moon, and you don't need a very expensive instrument, and you don't need a very expensive camera. I'm sure Barbara would say the same thing about variable star studies. But if you have in your mind that you have to invest many thousands of dollars and do all kinds of training, that's not necessarily true. And if you want to learn more, there's ways to find out more. The Astronomical League has a lunar observing program where you'll learn all sorts of things about the moon. There's also a very popular Isabel Williamson lunar observing program, which will, if you go through that program, you'll learn a lot. Alpo, of course, what does Alpo stand for? Astronomical League. So I'm having a senior moment already. I forgot what ALPO stands for. It is the Lunar and Planetary Observers, Association for Lunar and Planetary Observers. There you go. Richard needs some of that ginkgo pill or whatever they're trying to market to seniors these days. So if you're interested in lunar observing and lunar observing programs and contributing to scientific programs, ALPO is a really great organization to join. They have very active membership, and monthly you can submit your sketches, observations and photographs, and you can get involved in programs there. One of my favorite sites for observing the moon is Dial-A-Moon from NASA. They have a very realistic lunar simulation that is updated every hour, and you can put in your own dates and hours, and they actually simulate the lighting on the moon down to the craters and the shadows and things that the craters are casting. So it's a really great tool. I always use it when I'm doing outreach on a moon night to make sure I know what features are going to be illuminated, what it's going to look like, so I know what to highlight. There's also some great free software, the Virtual Moon Atlas, which is pretty good. It has lots of layers, scientific layers that you can add for lunar features, and it has a ephemeris generation that's pretty accurate as far as doing computations for the lunar phase and where the moon is and that sort of thing, which is really great. So that was several minutes on the moon, and that's all I have to talk about the moon this month. And I'm going to turn it over to Sharife, who probably is not going to have any senior moments. She's going to talk to us about Spaceport news, and I'm going to be quiet for a while. Take it away.
Now that I want to go and photograph the moon. So I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about last week's CRS 22 launch from, let's see, let me pull this thing up. The SpaceX CRS 22 mission. I'll start with a short little video and then talk to you about some of the experiments that went up. I apologize in advance if the video is a little choppy. My bandwidth has been iffy. So let's get started. On Thursday, June 3rd, 2021 at 1:29 p.m., SpaceX
Your audio cut out, Sharife.
supplies to the International Space Station. Let's take a look at some of the science that's going up.
docked at the zenith port of the Harmony module on the space station at around 5 a.m. on Saturday, June 6th. This module of the space station is known as the utility module, where the labs are connected. It'll remain at the station for about a month. These experiments are just a few of the 100 investigations currently being conducted aboard the orbiting laboratory in the areas of biology and biotechnology, physical sciences, and Earth and space sciences. Advances in these areas will help keep astronauts healthy during long-duration space travel and demonstrate technologies for future human and robotic exploration beyond low Earth orbit to the Moon and Mars through NASA's Artemis program.
All right. Oops. All right. Sorry about that. If the audio was weird, I couldn't get it to play from the computer instead of my microphone. So as you guys saw some of the experiments that are on board, I'm going to highlight a few of them. One of the experiments that is going up, or that went up, it's actually up there now, was the symbiotic squid and microbes experiment. And that was from the understanding of microgravity on animal microbe interactions, or umami experiment. And so it's going to be studying the symbiosis between squid and the microbes that are going to be inside of the squid, and then figuring out how microgravity affects that. And it'll be talking about the relationship between those microbes and figuring out what's beneficial with the animal hosts, and then also the bacteria and the different microbes that are going to be in it, and then how we can translate that to astronaut health. Let's see, any message? And let's see, yeah, that'll be translated to astronauts and how they can eventually help us on Earth. So another one of the, actually one of the pictures that you see, we'll go back. In the rightmost picture, that's how they were actually taken up in the payload, and you can see a little squid inside there. The bottom one is an enlarged view, and then this image right here is some of them inside of the dishes before they went up. So the next experiment, one of the other ones, was producing tougher cotton. And so this is from the Targeting Improved Cotton Through On-Orbit Cultivation, or TikTok, no relation to the social media platform project. And so what was going to be happening, cotton cultivars were launched up, and then it's going to be studying root development in space and in microgravity. In the bottom two pictures, you can see how they were launched as part of the payload. And then they're going to be studying the different varieties of cotton, and to learn different things about the water requirements and the pesticide use, and then also how we can translate that to Earth. So on top right, you can see the team that worked on this. And next, our water bears take on space. That was the next experiment. And any tardigrade fans? Tardigrades are awesome. They're, if you're not familiar, they're micro animals, and they are awesome in surviving in extreme and high stress environments. They can survive in space. And so they were launched as part of this mission to study the genetic component of why they can actually do that, and then being able to translate that to humans and long duration space flight, and then higher stress environments, and what are the genetic components that play a role in them being able to do that. So they're, tardigrades that you can find anywhere on Earth. You can find them anywhere from your backyard to now outer space. Another one of the experiments that was going up is the on-the-spot ultrasounds, and it's a butterfly IQ ultrasound. You can see the device in the middle, and what it's going to be doing is helping with medical capabilities and having ultrasounds available in remote locations in the world, and also being able to be something that can be taken in long-duration spaceflight as a compact way of doing ultrasounds in space. And so it can be helpful for both space medicine, and then also be translated to Earth. Another one is the Pilote. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that is from the European Space Agency is going to be, works on this project. And so they're going to be using virtual reality technology to be able to see how they can operate the Canadarm and different robotics from Earth in space, and then applications in microgravity, and being able to control some of the robotics in space from Earth. And so that can translate to different astronaut performance. So they don't have to be in space when doing some of the technology and some of the science, but they can actually control it from Earth. And then you can see how two of the engineers, scientists on the right side of the picture are able to control that with VR. And this one's pretty cool. I mean, they're pretty neat, but this one is some bonus power that was launched up, and you can see those are solar panels that are rolled up, and they look like a rug, right? And so they're rolled up inside that tube. And then once they get to the International Space Station, they're going to be unrolling them, and they're going to be solar panels that will be installed into the International Space Station to provide additional energy for the research lab, And what's neat is that there's going to be 6 total that are going to be launched up. This is the first pair. And it'll be the energy that's going to be used also on Gateway. If you guys are familiar with when the Artemis program kicks in, that Gateway will be orbiting around, will be similar ISS, only around the moon. And then this is the solar power that's going to be used similarly in the Gateway program. So that is basically it. There's a whole bunch more science that is on there, but picked some of the highlights. And yeah, any questions? So we have tardigrade fans. Yes. Oh yeah, the Bet Squiddler was the nickname. So anyway, that's basically it. Any other questions or anything?
Did you shoot that video of the rocket launch?
I did. It
That
was actually composite.
awesome. I liked
Yeah,
it.
that was actually the wind, not the sound of the rocket. Just a heads up. It was very windy that day, but
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. Thank you.
nice.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
All right. I couldn't help. I just finished rewatching the Watchmen series on HBO, and all I could think of was alien squids in outer space raining down. But we won't go there. Also, it was Kepler, by the way. I doubted myself. That crater was Kepler. It is not time to take my keys away just yet. So next up is Brendan, who's going to talk about Bring Earth to Mars or event. And Brendan, I've seen you around. Go ahead and take over.
I'm here.
Okay, then I'll quit talking and take it
Thanks,
away.
Richard. I'm going to share my screen there. And I was not joking. I was told by the principal investigator that one of the squid was named Bet Squiddler. So gotta love when they give them some personalities. So thanks for having me. Trisha asked me to come and chat with you all about a recent event we had called Bringing Mars to Earth, which was a community event that we put on at WMFE, which, if you're not familiar, is your public radio station here in Central Florida. We're here in Orlando, and we also have WMFV, which is our second station up in the Villages and Ocala. And I cover space for the station. I also have a weekly show exploring space exploration called Are We There Yet? And we like to try to get out into the community as much as we can, talking about all the things that we cover, from space to our health reporting to our environmental reporting. But unfortunately, the past year, we haven't been able to do that. So Bringing Mars to Earth was our first in-person event that we've had since the pandemic. We did it on May 22nd, so a few weeks ago, at the Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts and what they call their Front Yard Festival. So this is basically in front of the Dr. Phillips Center is this massive piece of lawn, and they've set up these little individual pods that people can sit in, and during the pandemic, you could socially distance yourself and still go out there and enjoy. And this was our first in-person event since the pandemic, which was funded by United Arts Foundation. We got a grant from them, and the Orlando Science Center was our main sponsor. And Trisha wanted me to come on here and kind of talk about some of the things that just talk about the event, and also some of the things that we learned as, other organizations are starting to think about putting on these community events once again. So just a little background on the show itself. We had a panel of experts. Derek, who you are all familiar with, was an expert, along with Dr. Addie Dove. She's a UCF planetary scientist, and Joan Melendez-Meisner, who is an integration engineer at NASA. The three of them joined me on stage, and we had a great conversation about perseverance. And some of the cool images and videos and sounds that the rover has been sending it back, and then talking a little bit about the science objectives of the mission, which during the show hadn't started yet, but have since now started. And really our goal was to get a general audience to kind of see what the surface of Mars is like, and some of the really cool science that we had that's happening with this particular mission and the other Martian missions that arrived at the planet earlier this year. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the things that we learned. This was a ticketed event, which is pretty new for us. There are pods in the yard, as you can see behind Ricardo Williams, who you guys might know him from a Nerd Night. you can see those little pods, and the pods hold between 2 and 5 people. We actually sold tickets. They were between $10 and $20 each, with the discounts given to student groups and educators. And this was the first kind of ticketed science event hosted by WMFE, at least since I've been there. And the reason we did that is because, not only did we need to cover some minor costs that we had with the program that weren't picked up by our grants and our sponsorship, but also we wanted to make sure that we got a good crowd. We found that, if you have a ticket, even if it's at a modest price, more people show up. And actually our expectations were exceeded for this event. Normally our events bring in about 100 people. We sold 579 tickets. A few of them were given away to members and VIPs. But for the most part, we sold most of those tickets at a modest price. We were able to scan at the door 535. So my journalist math tells me that's about a 92% turnout, which was a fantastic turnout for an event like this, especially coming off the back end or still in the wake of a global pandemic. So we were really, really excited to see those numbers. And I'm sure Derek was just as excited as I was to walk out on stage and see how many people were out there to partake in this event. So here's some of the things that that went right to make this happen. Right before the event, the CDC lifted their COVID guidance. So people were a little more comfortable going to an event like this, and they lifted the guidance as we were still kind of promoting the event. So that was really helpful. It was an outdoor event, and I think people were a little stir crazy. They were ready to get out. As I mentioned before, by putting just even a modest price to these tickets, we got a really great turnout. But I think the most important thing is that, space is cool. And I think I'm preaching to the choir here at this point, but this was just more evidence that the general public, especially here in Central Florida, when they have launches like Sharife was describing happening in their backyard, they're really connected to this topic. So they're very happy to come out to something like this. So some of the things that we learned that I wanted to share with you is that, as I mentioned, our audience loves space and is inherently curious about it because it's cool, and also because of just everything that goes on in our backyard. And there's so many people that are connected to the space program that live here in Central Florida. I think people are ready to get out and do stuff again. We're feeling comfortable. Most people are vaccinated. We can do stuff like that. Our audience in particular, we realized, was apprehensive about a large event inside. So an outdoor event was great for us. Fortunately for you, most of your events are outside, so you don't have to worry about that. And we also learned that, a ticketed event, we had a much greater turnout. I also think that the panel was fantastic. We had folks coming from all aspects of the science community, from Derek, who is, an astronomer and a photographer, and also an excellent communicator. In presenter, we had Joan, who talked about the engineering of Perseverance, and we talked about the helicopter, which everyone is super intrigued by ingenuity. And we had Dr. Dove, who really kind of brought the science and Martian geology that made it accessible and enjoyable to our audience. So it was a really great program and super successful, which means we're going to be doing a lot more. So we're planning on more space-centric community programming. We're going to continue to do these outdoor community outreach events, and looking into more ways to include the audience in the show's content. We were not able to do a traditional Q&A like you normally would have at these events with, roving microphone or whatnot. So we had to rely on Twitter. And while we got a lot of participation through Twitter Q&A, not many people have access to that platform or familiar with that platform. So we're looking into different ways where you could either text in your questions or write in your questions. We're also looking at doing smaller, more intimate events with 1 or 2 subject matter experts or VIPs, and then looking at bringing these events to other communities. Right now, we traditionally focus in Metro Orlando. We want to bring it to the Villages, Brevard, even up to Volusia area as well. So So really that's kind of what we learned and what's ahead. It was a great program. I have to, give props to Derek for helping me out so much with this. But yeah, I just wanted to share that with you all. I think Trisha will post a link to the YouTube, or I can post it in the chat, so that you can go back and watch it if you're at all interested in it. But it was a really fun event. So Richard, I'm gonna wrap up quick. If there's any questions or you'd like me to elaborate anything more, I'm happy to do that. But
Okay.
that's it.
I don't see anything in the chat box. I found it interesting that ticketing the event caused a greater attendance. One of the things that I've had conversations in the business world about is, when you give something away for free, there's a perceived value. It's always better to charge at least a little bit so that people think they're getting something of value. And that's like a lot of people who aren't in business are like, why don't you do that for free? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, free is not it costs, well, number one, it costs money to put things on, but anyway, that has nothing to do with astronomy. I'm just easily
I was very
distracted.
shocked by that too. I didn't think we would have as big of a turnout because of that, and it was the opposite. So yeah.
Great. Well, it sounds like a great event. I'm sorry I missed it now, actually.
We will have more, and I'll be sure to post the link in the chat.
Yes, please do. Please do. Okay. Well, thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Oh, yes, always. So next up is Taran Hill, our staff archaeoastronomer at the CFAS. Archaeoastronomy is another one of my favorite topics. So I'm looking forward to Taran's presentation. Are you around, Taran?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can see you.
Excellent.
That's my cue to be quiet and turn off my video and let you take it.
I'm going to share the screen here and see what we can come up with. All right. Slideshow and start from first slide. All right. So this is kind of a course and a book review about archaeoastronomy. The book and the course are both taught by Giulio Megligi. I'm probably mispronouncing that. It's an Italian name. He teaches at the Politecnico di Milano, and the course that I'm talking about is offered through Corsica. A little bit of a way of an introduction. Archaeoastronomy is an interdisciplinary study about ancient cultures and how they viewed the stars, and about the material remains of those cultures and whether or not they were designed for astronomical purposes. And so it's a lot goes into it. It's primarily anthropology and astronomy, but also bits of physics, bits of mathematics, bits of surveying, bits of other things together. It's a relatively new interdisciplinary study, even though people have been talking about its subject matter for a very, very long time. And it seems like there's a large overlap with History Channel style documentaries about the subject matter, which creates a lot of confusion. And because of its niche interdisciplinary nature, like one of the authoritative references for it is called the Handbook of Archaeo and Ethnoastronomy. And this is written by like Clive Ruggles, and it sells for about $1,000.54 for a 3-volume collection. With prices like that, obviously, it's kind of like geared towards academic libraries, but not the kind of thing people could readily available. And so I think just the last couple of years, this book came out, and I was very, very excited about it. And the author also decided to offer an MOOC, a massive open online course about it. And so we're going to talk a little bit about these. So a little bit about the author and professor. He was born in 1964 in Rome. He has a PhD in mathematical physics from the University of Milan, 1992. He developed his academic career at the Politecnico of Milan. He was made a full professor in 2005. He co-authored one of the UNESCO IAU documents about astronomical heritage. He's also taught archaeoastronomy at the Italian University since 2009. He's also a director of a laboratory of scientific communication involved with the mathematics department. And not only did he just recently put his MOOC open to the public, but he's also been in multiple TV broadcasts, including on CNN, History Channel, National Geographic, and specials like this. So he's someone who even has a Wikipedia page and several books that can be bought on Amazon. The course is a massive online open course, and it's offered through the website Corsica. I don't know how many of you have looked into these massive open online courses before, but they've came a long way. A while back, there was like Harvard X and Yale X who are putting a lot of their courses online for free that people could study. They had the syllabus and the lecture videos available and a way to work through them. But there wasn't much in the way of tracking or showing that you could that you completed the course, and there was very little in the way of grading and things of this nature. These courses have developed a long way. Now the course is available two ways. You can either audit the course for free, watch all the videos and get the information out of it for absolutely no money, or you can get the course verified, which means if you pass all of the quizzes and with a certain percentage and pay the course fee, which is somewhere between $50 and $60, then you will receive a certificate saying that you passed the course and a website where people can go to see indeed that you passed the course. The length of time that they suggest for the course to take is about 7 weeks or 2 to 3 hours a week. I find that that was not the length of time that I needed to put in, but I did put in a decent amount of time on it. The course is mostly composed of videos of the professors doing lectures. There is some reading involved in it. For those of you who've taken an undergraduate astronomy course, the first class, the first week and the last week have a lot of those style questions where you're not given something that you can really look up the answer to. You're given some information and you're asked to solve problems according to those information. So the first week and the last week are somewhat more challenging than most of the other weeks in which you can find the answers by reviewing the material. If I remember right, you need to score above an 80 to pass the quiz. There's a quiz for every week, and they may be taken as many times as you'd like, but they can only be taken 3 times in a 24-hour period. So after that, you have to wait a day to take the next course. And the questions, most of the questions are not things that can be obviously found. They're things that have to be worked about. And the rest of the material is much more so the first part of the course talks about the astronomy parts, how the sun works, how the stars move in the heaven, the apparent motions of the moon, the apparent motions of the planets, how to figure out true north, what kind of tools are used in archaeoastronomy, and these kind of things. And then the course moves into some generic information about how astronomy developed among human beings. And then it goes into looking at particular cultures and their astronomical material that they have left behind in the form of monuments and what he calls hierothenes, which are things that you see at certain times of the year that combine with astronomical events. Certain times of year, the sun may make an effect with a certain thing because of how the buildings were structured. And so he talks about these hierothenes. And so it's very, very interesting and useful information. As far as the highlights go, the first week is where you learn the basics of archaeoastronomy. The second week, you go into that anthropological information I was talking about with how astronomy developed with the Neolithic periods and whatnot, and you look at the cultures of Stonehenge and Newgrange in Ireland. Then you move into the Egyptian period, and you look at some of the things. Then week 4 is the pre-Columbian period, talking mostly about the Mayans. And week 5, you go into some Asian cultures and you look at some of the Asian sites. Week 6, you look at the classical sites in Greece and Rome and how their temples were constructed. And week 7, of course, they call astronomical insights, with the rest of the information about how to work out the science of these things. Along with the course and the course's textbook is the book, which is called Archaeoastronomy by Guillaume Maggi. And he calls it the Introduction to the Science of Stars and Stones. It's much of the material of the same course. The book itself is literally lecture notes from the undergraduate course that he teaches in the university in Milan. And so it's very useful. It's more in depth than the course and goes deeper, but it is structured slightly differently. The new edition is the second edition, and it has an app you can download. And the app is kind of a camera. And when you hold the camera over a page that has a certain logo on it, it will pull up multimedia material, videos, pictures, diagrams that can be used in combination with the book to add from the book. A lot of the multimedia stuff that it adds is things taken from the MOOC. The book is at the undergraduate level and has even more of those kind of material where you get given information, you're kind of expected to solve things with it. So it's not a light book for easy reading, but it is fairly, but it does have a lot of dense material in it as well. The old Beetlejuice joke of it reading like a radio manual is not necessarily inapt. Here's kind of a summary of the table of contents. The first 3 chapters is where you get into a lot of your meat about how archaeoastronomy is going to be handled. Talking about celestial coordinates, the apparent motions of the sun and the stars, the constellations, talking about the most important topic of precession, which is very, very important when we're breaking down these sites. Precession is the apparent wobbling of the Earth. And so, not the apparent wobbling, but still the Earth's wobble, and like the changing of the pole star from time, Theban in the past, and now it's at Polaris, and the pole star will change again throughout history, and those kind of topics. It also talks about the apparent motion of the planets, different human calendars, and the observation of celestial bodies on the horizon, and how the horizon plays in to different sites. Then chapter 2 is acquiring data, and the data section talks about the use of the tools, about the idea of getting into doing archaeoastronomy fieldwork. It talks about the magnetic compass with the clinometer, which you can get a very affordable one for under 20 bucks on Amazon. I'll show it bigger at the end of the video. And then it talks about the theodolite, which is used in surveying, GPSs, and global position, virtual globe software like Planetarium, Stellarium, excuse me. But with the compass that I'm showing you in Stellarium, you can start doing the field work yourself. It doesn't cost much more than that. So, you know, it's like a buy-in for the compass and, you know, maybe a tripod if you want to get fancy, and you could start going places and seeing if you could lay out the astronomy sites yourself. Now, after that, there's a section on data analysis. Once you've done the field work and collected the data, how do you begin to analyze it? It talks about graphical and statistical tools and reconstructions of some of the sites. Then the book goes into talking about the different cultures and the different anthropological aspects. You see the different cultures represented: megalithic culture in the Mediterranean, ancient Egypt, pre-Columbian, the classical world, and Asia. Then like astronomy, the middle sections, which I just skipped over, were those anthropological sections, like astronomy and architecture, the roots of civilization, where he talks about astronomy and landscapes and powers and the scientific foundations of archaeoastronomy. Those are the things that work out the multidisciplinary aspects and the evolution of how these things came along with humans. So the difference between the course, the book costs, I think, around somewhere around $20 on Amazon. And it is much more affordable than most of the serious books on archaeoastronomy that you can find. So when you buy the archaeoastronomy book, you're buying undergraduate lectures to give you a good solid foundation in how to do archaeoastronomy, walking you through the tools you need, the kind of analysis and the basic concepts that we know from the science of astronomy to look at our cultural remains about different archaeological sites. And then he gives you several examples throughout the rest of the book of cultures and how this has been worked out. And so getting started, there's not much of a better way to do this. Now, I paid for the certificate, and on my last slide here, you see, this is what their certificate from the course looks like, and they give you a website that you can share with people to show that you indeed completed the course. So what I did, because I decided to pay money for the course, was I bought the book and I went through the course, and I watched all the course material videos for the week once. I read them once because they have it closed captioned where all the things there. And then I read the corresponding chapters in the book. And then I studied through the quiz until I passed each of the sections. I probably spent about, I guess, 2 or 3 hours working through each week. The course does not encourage you to time gate it. So they don't encourage you to wait to the next week to start the next week. They encourage you to work through it at whatever pace you're comfortable. And so I finished in much closer than 7 weeks. I finished in about 3. But I was very, I had a little extra time at the moment when I did it. And I was also very zealous for the material because some of the material, like I said, is very, very costly. And so it was a joy to kind of work through. If you don't have any money, you can always, like I said, audit the course for free and get a lot out of it. And then if you decide to buy the book and the course, those there are fun things too. The book would probably be sufficient for you to learn what you needed to know if you only wanted to do the book. But I found that the audio video lectures reinforced my reading. And so it was more helpful for me, I think, to go through both together than it would have been on the own. And well, being that I like astronomy and like things like certificates and things of that nature, gives you something nice to hang on the wall and talk about that you have done it with other folks. And so that is my review of the Archaeoastronomy course. Does anyone have any questions or comments about it before I pass on to our other esteemed members?
I want to thank you. Very interesting. Actually, I did stop paying attention to you for just a moment because I got online and I actually bought a copy of the book for Kindle, and I've already downloaded it. So that looks really good.
It is. It's really
Yeah.
good, especially if you're looking into actually doing it, not just reading cool things about Stonehenge or something. It's really the scientific part of it. And again, I would recommend the second edition just because of the app tie-ins. And I know it's available for Android, and I think it's also available for the iStore. But if you don't, you can always just go on Corsica and audit the class for free and watch the videos that way.
Okay. And Frank just posted a link to the second edition in the chat box if anybody else is curious. So I took a couple of classes at Swinburne in Australia, and I tell you, the online astronomy classes, they can be pretty rigorous. You think it's just, read and watch something and take an online quiz, and it challenges you quite a bit. So congratulations on the certificate, and we look forward to many future presentations about archaeoastronomy from you.
Thank you. It's good to see you all again.
Yep, you too. So next up is John Pinto, who's going to talk about calculating the solstice, undoubtedly using methods that were not available to the builders of Stonehenge. And I see John Pinto's face and I hear some background noise. So sounds like he does not need any extra help or introduction from me. So
thank you, Richard. Let me get my screen up here. All right, let's get started. Okay, so we are, as Richard mentioned, ready for the summer solstice, which is coming up. Technically, we should be calling it the June solstice because down in Australia at Swinburne University, it will be this winter solstice. So it depends on your audience. Again, I try to keep this simple. You can do it with pen and paper. Calculate it if you really, really, really want to. And of course, there's always assumptions I'm making on you folks. So this is going to be about math. So I know some of you are math phobic, so I apologize. But it is fun if you do enjoy the math part. Obviously, everybody knows about constellations. We're going to be mentioning Taurus and Gemini. Coordinated universal time we'll be talking about. celestial equators and ecliptics, declinations and longitudes, Julian day numbers, and sextants. Now, if any of you have seen my previous slides, this is going to look real familiar. We just had to change a couple of the equations. And of course, I'm going to do this as if we are observing from Florida. So that simplifies a lot of the math. So exactly what is the summer solstice? Most people think it's the day with the most number of daylight hours, which it is. The other definition you will hear, which is probably a little more accurate, is that it is the time when the sun reaches its most northern declination at noon. And there is also an astronomical definition, which is that the sun, that the sun reaches 90 degrees of ecliptic longitude, which currently is between Taurus and Gemini. And that is the definition we're going to use. It's going to be a simple approximation that'll be accurate up until the year 2080, and it'll be accurate to within plus or minus 20 minutes. And we'll see that kind of at the end, how good we got with our approximation. Where is the sun actually? So Richard had asked me to do this a couple lectures ago, so I made a little diagram. Throughout the course of the year, the sun basically moves around what's called the ecliptic, which is basically called that because that's where eclipses occur. And during the summertime, or as we get closer to summer, the sun is getting more and more northerly. And at summer solstice, it is at its most northerly point. Now, the reason for the scientific definition, let's call it, the calculation definition, is because from this point here, where the sun is just crossing the equator, and to this point here, when it reaches the summer solstice, that's 90 degrees of ecliptic longitude. So that's what we're going to be using. So how do we do this? Well, it's really 3 steps. We calculate the Julian day number of the summer solstice. It's just a number. We'll convert that to universal time. And then we convert that to Florida time. So you'll know what time it is on your clock in your house. So how do we do that? So let's start with calculating the JD of the summer solstice. This is probably the simplest part of this entire calculation. It's just a magic formula. You look it up in a book. The only thing that's kind of mysterious is this, what's this MF thing? MF is really simple to calculate. You take the year it is, 20xy, and the millennium factor is 0.0xy. So here's our example. Let's take 2021. Using this little formula, MF turns out to be 0.021. You stick that into the equation, multiply this 365,000 number times 0.021, and you get this 770.0741416663. Add that to this magic number in the front, and you get, this is when the summer solstice is going to occur. The Julian day number 2459386.641816663. So we just need a Julian day calendar and you are all set. So let's see what one looks like. The important part of this number for us right now is this 9386. The beginning of this 245 doesn't change fairly often. So typically on a Julian day number calendar, you're going to just see these 4 digits. So let's see where 9386 falls in June. So here's a Julian day number calendar you can get from the AAVSO website. I picked up the June section of it and looked for 9386, and sure enough, it's on the 20th of June. Don't let that fool you. All this means is that 9386 starts at noon on the 20th, and it lasts all the way until noon on the 21st. So we have to figure out where between the 20th and the 21st is this Julian day number actually fall. So we have to convert to universal time first. You can do that by going to the AUVSO website and running their Julian day calculator, sticking that number in, and it will tell you exactly when it will be. You can get a calendar, like I just showed you, or you can just manually calculate it like we're going to do today. It's just a picture of what that calculator page looks like at the AUVSO website. You want to cheat? So let's get going. We do this by first calculating the Julian day number for the beginning of the year. If you're following along on these programs, this is a very simple thing. You have to do this once a year. You take this number, you write it on your calendar, and you never have to do it again. So let's calculate it. To calculate the Julian day number of your year, you take this magic number, and you take your year, subtract 1 from it, multiply it by this number, which will look really familiar. It's the number of days in a year. Multiply those together, truncate it, and add it to this number, and you have your starting Julian day number for the year you can use for all your Julian day calculations for all of 2021. So here we go. Year is 2021. Subtract 1 from it, multiply it by 365.25 and truncate it. You get 737,805. We don't have to do any truncation, actually came out to 0, so that was nice. We add that to the magic number, and we get that 2021 started Julian day number 2459214.5. Next thing we have to do is find out when the Julian day number was for the beginning of June, since we know the June solstice starts in June sometime. We need to figure that out. Again, fairly simple calculation. You take the Julian day number we just calculated for the year, and you add something called DIY 6. It doesn't mean do it yourself, though we are doing it ourselves. It means days into the year. How many days into the year are we when June starts? It's either 151 days or 152 days, depends on whether it's a leap year. So 2021, it was not a leap year. So our DIY is 151. So we take our number we just calculated in the previous slide, we add 151 to it, and we get June started on 2459365.5. We're almost there. So to calculate the UTC of the summer solstice, we know it's in June, so that's easy. We just have to calculate the date and the time in June. Now, we already kind of know a little bit. It's going to be somewhere between 20th and 21st. We need to know exactly when. So all we do is we take that JD we calculated 6 or 7 slides ago. We subtract it from that JD we just found for June. So let's go and do that. Year is 2021. That was the UTC we had calculated before. This is the beginning of June. And sure enough, it turns out it's on the 21st UTC time. That's the time over in England. 0.1418166. I rounded it a little bit. So now we just have to convert that to Florida time. So if we were in England, it would be on the 21st, approximately 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. What time is it going to be here in Florida? So all we have to do is calculate local clock time. And basically what it is we're taking that UTC time and we're going to subtract a time zone factor. Basically, the time zone factor is either 5/24 if it's standard time, or 4/24 if we're in daylight savings time. Okay, that's what those come out to be in decimals. 2021, daylight savings time is in effect in June, and actually in most Junes it will be. So we take our time zone factor, subtract it from our UTC time, and it shows us that in Florida, it's actually going to be on the 20th, 0.9751499. So somewhere on the 20th, probably near the end of the day, it's going to be the summer solstice. Now, of course, none of us really has a clock that works on fractions of a day, so we actually will want to convert that to a 24-hour clock, which is more commonly used in our homes. So I'm just going to do the calculation. This should be very familiar to anybody who's done any kind of date calculations in their work. So I'm going to run through this part of it fairly quick. It is 2021. It is June. So to get the day, all we did was truncate that big long number. That was pretty straightforward. We need to find the fractional portion of the day. So what we do is take that 20, subtract it from our time we had calculated, and we get, this is the fractional portion of the day that we need to figure out what hour and minute that is. So first, let's calculate the hour. We'll take our fractional day, multiply it by the number of hours in the day, and that comes out to 23.4036976. So it's in the 23rd hour of the day, which is 11 p.m. And just basically truncate that number to get the hours. It's pretty straightforward. We subtract that from the fractional hours, and we get 0.4036976. And that's the portion of the hour we'll be interested in. We'll multiply that by 60 minutes in an hour. We'll round it up, and it turns out to be 24 minutes into the 23rd hour. So the summer solstice will occur sometime around, like I said, this is a simple approximation, June 20th, 2023-24, or June 20th, 11:24 p.m. How close is that to the actual sophisticated, precisely calculated time? 11:32. So we're only 8 minutes off. So we did pretty good, pretty good for, you know, a calculation probably take you 10 minutes with a calculator. So if you want to learn more about this kind of stuff, this is probably the first book I would recommend. It is a gentle introduction to computational astronomy, because it's all kinds of calculations. This is probably the simplest one in the book, and that's why the reason I picked it. If you want to get a little more sophisticated, this shows you how to do it with a spreadsheet. They even give you the spreadsheets online if you're a spreadsheet fan. If you want to get deep into this and start programming it on your computer, this would be the next book I would recommend. This is probably the book that every one of us computational astronomers has on our bookshelves. And this is all the theory. If you're really interested in the theory portion, you can even get into the relativity adjustments you have to make sometimes for some of these calculations, which we will not be going into. In case you're interested in all of the funny magic numbers for each of the equinoxes and solstices for the year, you can just keep this page handy, and anytime you need to calculate it, you just calculate your MF, multiply the magic numbers out, and you will find your JD. And if you want to know your DIY values for each of the months, that's also here on the slide. Thanks for listening, and you can now, if you are the math phobes, start listening again, uncover your eyes, and I will be posting this up onto our Facebook page and our group's IO site for you to use whenever you feel like calculating one of those events. And welcome for questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you, John. So now we know June 20th, about 11:30 at night. Let there be rejoicing. The days are going to get shorter. If you're going, well, what about the solar astronomers? No, the only time you should look at all the solar stuff's done in the morning when the seeing is good, and later in the afternoon. So a longer day does not help the solar astronomers, but we need longer nights for us nighttime astronomers. So very good. Next up is Elaine. We do have an eclipse in the morning. I shouldn't say we, because we are going to miss out. Elaine, are you in Florida, or are you up somewhere to watch the eclipse by any chance?
I am in Florida.
Okay, so you're going to miss out too. But I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about eclipse travel. And since I see you and hear you, I'm going to bow out for a few minutes. Take it away.
forward one too soon. All right, a little while ago, I posted a question about eclipse travel. I've kind of been thinking about going somewhere to see the 2024 eclipse. And of course, these are not proper binoculars, but the picture is otherwise appropriate. So in 2024, there is a total solar eclipse that travels across a great deal of North America. It's on April 8th, and it will travel from the Pacific Ocean across Mexico, the United States, and then exit through Canada. So it's a pretty good long path, pretty close to us. And it goes through a lot of states, similar to the last total solar eclipse that went through a lot of the states of the United States. So you have a lot of opportunities of places to go within the United States to see it, but also without significant travel, and hopefully in 2024, travel will not be a major concern for us. You also have opportunities in Mexico and Canada. So how do you decide where you're going to go? First, access. Can you get to where you might want to go? Can you get a place to stay? And apparently a lot of places along the eclipse path are already booking up. Cost, that's very important to a lot of us. The duration, some people really want to be at the point of maximum duration of the eclipse. Weather. I had originally considered Canada because I was thinking it's probably going to be less crowded up there, but then somebody mentioned Canada, the weather can be a whole lot more iffy than other parts of the continent. And then chase options. Some real diehards, if the weather's bad where they are, they want options to chase down the totality and get to where the weather's better and they can really see it. So this shows the greatest eclipse and the greatest duration are both in central Mexico. And plenty of opportunities to get down there if you want, although I suspect that area, the accommodations are pretty booked up, and I don't know exactly where that is. It might be somewhere difficult to get to without very many amenities. And then I looked for some weather information. I know there are other sites out there. This was just the first one I found about average cloud cover. And I know predicting April of 2024 is way out there, but they're showing typical cloud cover at that time of the year is the least in Mexico, and it gets increasingly worse as you head up toward Canada. The blue, as shown on the side here in this graph, the blue is the clearest, and going up to the orange is the least clear. Now, this is only a forecast, and we know about weather forecasts. No one else can be wrong so often and still have a job. So who knows what the actual weather will be. But it looks like in the United States, you have a better chance in central Texas here than I would have coming up here. But boy, this part of Canada is so pretty. I may still think about going up there. So that's the 2024 eclipse. And I put it out there because I'm thinking about doing something, and I wanted to know about other people's experiences, suggestions, and I have made no plans yet. But I wanted to start a conversation, and I've started a conversation, which is good. And let's continue the conversation. But there are other eclipses out there, and there's even one this year. Okay, I'm sorry. These are some resources for getting your eclipse information. But there is an eclipse this year. And where is that eclipse? I know this picture was not taken there, but 2021's total eclipse is in Antarctica. And I am vaguely thinking about trying to do that. Virtually all the viewings are from ships with good reason, because one, a lot of it's over the ocean, and two, there are very few accommodations on the continent of Antarctica. But I haven't gotten very far in my planning because in addition to the normal challenges of going to see an eclipse, and in this case, cost is a big one, access is a major consideration, and not just because it's so remote, but because of COVID. Most of the cruises come out of Ushuaia, Argentina, which is right about here. And as of right now, Argentina is not open. Chile is open, but Chile has no infrastructure south of about here. Punta Arenas is really about the further south infrastructure, but Chile hung on to the very tip of the continent. You can see this funky border for the two countries, and sailing out of Punta Arenas puts you significantly further away. So most of the sailings are from Ushuaia, and who knows what Argentina will be doing in December. Hopefully it'll be back open, but do you really want to shell out a lot of money and not have the trip go? So anyway, over the next couple months and a couple years, let's talk about eclipse travel, and maybe some of us will go do it. Thank you.
Thanks, Elaine. I know for the last total eclipse, I went up to North Carolina, and weather is a big deal. I get to experience totality behind clouds, but it was still kind of a cool experience because it got very, very dark, and you could see the red along all around the horizon. The animals got real quiet. The people got real quiet too. It was quite something. It was not, what we were hoping for, but it was still, the environment changed quite a bit.
I was in Northeast Georgia, and I probably had similar weather conditions. Got to see a good bit of it, but it wasn't completely clear.
Mm-hmm. I got a few pictures of the partial eclipse. Didn't get any pictures of totality, of course, but yeah, it's definitely, it's worth going to do, even if the weather's bad. But definitely the next time I want to hit the weather jackpot, I'm going to Texas, over in that little area where it's kind of green blue, with some friends for that one. And I would encourage everyone to take this conversation on our groups IO to talk about eclipse plans. If people want to meet up somewhere or try to reserve an area, the group I'm with, it's not other things. We thought we had a one good spot, and as soon as they figured out that the RV that they were in the path of the eclipse, they stopped, and they wouldn't reserve it for us because they want to raise the price, and they can't decide what they want to raise the price for. So yeah, if you can get a spot, get it. Also, another thing I heard about that happened during the last eclipse where places were reneging on their reservation. They were giving people their money back because they were raising their prices and then getting them. And there's nothing you can do about that. No, there's no legal recourse. So make sure when you make your reservations, maybe it sounds like a counterintuitive, but make sure they know there's an eclipse so that they don't change their mind later. I would much rather them charge me more money than cancel my reservation after after the fact, especially as it gets closer to the eclipse, because it'll be impossible to stay anywhere. But
with the 2021 eclipse, the location is so remote that all the travel is eclipse oriented. They know, and I don't think they'll be canceling because the prices are sufficiently high enough already that they do reflect the eclipse.
I know I don't have a link, but I know Sky and Telescope is doing a flight over Antarctica where you can watch the eclipse from an airplane.
And there are flights out of Chile, but as I said, the sailings with Argentina not open.
Yeah, anything could happen between now and December, and anything includes not being able to go. So Yeah, that could turn bad, but yeah.
Well, if I
Alright.
do go, then I'll be starting a conversation about how to take photographs.
There's a good book by Alan Dyer on photographing eclipses, solar eclipses. There's probably a couple of them, but that's one that I bought for my Kindle back at the last eclipse when I was planning to do some photography for that. And he's got some good advice, and it's $20, something like that,
Yeah,
plus or minus on Amazon. So
post that information and get it in the conversation.
yep. So we're down to our last, and unless I've forgotten somebody, we're down to one more of our the last of our mini program extravaganza, and that's Eric Hoin, who is the counterpart to
Hey,
my
Richard.
moon stuff. He's going to talk about the sun. I don't see
Some-
you, Eric, so get your
Here.
video on and your sharing and all of that. I hear you.
Hang on. Let me get the video going here.
Where's Eric?
Come on. Oh, start video. There
Oh,
we are.
There you are. Okay.
Fantastic.
I'm going to
Hey.
bow out then and let you take it away.
Okay, look at me, huh? John Pinto did a great presentation with his calculations. He's got that Galileo look going too, so. Computations. All right, let me share this screen. Oh, come on. Is that working?
No, do we still just see you?
There we go.
Oh,
How's that?
There we go. It says you
All
started.
right.
And now I see it. So you're good to
All
go.
right. All right. Here we go. 60 seconds with the sun. And otherwise known as the sun moved. Hey, it's not a dilemma. It's an analemma. So after seeing what programs are coming up on upcoming eclipses and that, reminded me of a few weeks ago, I had my telescope out looking at the moon. So some neighbors came over and they had some youngsters and they took a look, and we talked about how the moon moves across the sky in its path, and that it stays within a certain boundary of the equator, but then the sun moves drastically north and drastically south through its travels through the year. And one of them said, it moves, isn't that scary? And that's where I got the title from. I said, well, it's not a dilemma. If I could show you, it's called an analemma. If you could image the sun throughout the year. And so you're setting up, don't be like this guy, okay? Be like this guy, all right? What a great setup, is Skywatch, a refractor. And he's got fantastic images of the sun here. White light filter, does it all professionally. And so then when we talked about an analemma, I had mentioned about having a globe with the analemma actually on the globe. And one of the older children said, oh, we've got a globe and it's got that funny figure 8 on it, and we don't know what it is. And I said, well, that tracks the sun. That shows from that location on the globe. And just to be specific, on globes, traditionally, the analemmas are put near the Marquesas Islands. And so it shows the path of the sun in the sky from that location on Earth. So you can see here, you've got how you've got spring from, well, let's go back to the solstices. And of course, solstice has the word sol, which is the name of the sun. I am sorry. And you can see down very bottom of the image, December 20th, winter solstice up near the top where the summer solstice is, and in between the travels, whether the sun is early ahead of the sun is early ahead of clocks, or behind in minutes. And that's really going to be another talk because I only have 60 seconds, which I already ran past. But and so then if you're going to image the sun from a fixed location, from a fixed time, fixed location, and you're going to have the scope or camera oriented the same way over this number of days, weeks, months, and it will reveal Sol's movement through the sky, or the sun's movement through the sky. And if you do it right, well, here's what you should be getting. And this is a simulation, of course, say from the nation's capital. And we're coming up on summer solstice. There we go, right there. And as you follow the loop and follow the pattern of the sun as it loops around, over on the left, you'll see a corresponding loop, the elliptical orbit of Earth around the sun, and then you'll see a dashed line. It's a circular orbit. So we know that the orbits of the planets around the sun are ellipses and not circular, but it gives a circular orbit just for reference. And not only is it an ellipse, but of course the Earth's orbit is tilted to the sun. So the sun moves up and down, north, south, travels through the sky throughout the year. And you may ask, why is the summer loop, the spring summer, and late summer loop smaller than the other more southerly traveled loop? And that's because of not only being elliptical, and having the tilt of the Earth, but also the distance of the sun. The sun is about 94 million miles away in June, whereas in December, in the winter months, it comes as close as right around 91 million miles. So you have not only ellipse, angle of the Earth, you have distance to consider there. So if you do happen to try and, since we're talking about solar imaging and eclipses and all that, if you do happen to try to create an analemma, here's a beautiful one. And I did this Temple of Apollo in Corinth in Greece. And of course, Apollo is one of the names of the sun. And I thought, while Elaine was talking, wouldn't it be cool if someone in 2024, in the path of the eclipse, tried this and then could get an image of totality in there also. So if you happen to create your own analemma, go for it. And you can go from this to this. And that's 60 seconds with the sun. Have a great sol. Back to you.
Thank you, Eric. Have a great sol. Yep. Have a good day. Have a good night. Okay, great. Well, that is the end of our summer mini program extravaganza. I think it was a pretty good meeting tonight. Thank you, everyone who presented and took a part in putting that together. We will be back again next month virtually. We'll be taking a break, just as a reminder. We traditionally don't have a meeting in August, and if you missed the very beginning of the meeting, we are tentatively planning to get back to meeting at the planetarium in September. That is largely gauged by the college's policy. We got some comments. Is there anything in the comments I need to look at? Yeah, thanks everybody. Look forward to seeing everybody in September. Yeah, that's definitely the case from here as well. So thank you everybody for your time. Thank you for your support of CFAS, and I'm looking forward to getting back in front of you guys at an actual meeting and having some star parties and get-togethers with telescopes where we can do observing and hang out and talk about things that that only people in CFAS can appreciate and love to hear about so much. So with that, I'm going to bid you adieu. I'm going to turn off my mic and phone, and then we'll terminate the meeting. And again, look forward to seeing you. See you on Groups.io in the meantime. Bye-bye.